Yo, Drake, my brother, I think you're not reading the room here. You just went through one of the most horrifying rap battles of life. I do kind of look at Drake like, bad timing again.
I study
bad timing
for a living.
Are you scared away from LA?
Wow.
Are you?
Spicy.
Are you?
Am I scared away?
No, you're not.
No.
Okay, then why didn't you do an LA tour? Why are you just in Europe?
LA tour? Spicy.
Ladies and gentlemen, in today's episode of the Canadian Katy Perry acting like a fruity fairy, we have the loud bearded BBL buffoon bawling with Bobby Altoff, and I am not talking about bawling out. I mean, he was crying, weeping, acting like the petty prom queen petition padre that he is, cackling like a Kardashian, getting deep in his Gossip Girl bag, bashing Rick Ross, Kendrick Lamar, and the entire hip-hop media, while Marilyn Monroe was mocking and dodging Bobby Altoff's sharp questions, like whether he got his abs enhanced in surgical sessions, and we will break down why the Rambling Graham gave us the goofiest interview of all time. But first, drop a like and subscribe if you enjoy the rhyme, because I study spicy for a living. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is no wonder that Drake was so excited for Young Thug to come out of jail, since he missed having his gossip queen friend right by his side. And aside from Young Thug talking about everyone in the industry, La Brianna was smoking on that Gossip Girl pack like a chimney, while Jimmy could not keep quiet like a cricket. No Jiminy, so he linked with Bobby Altoff to spill the tea on his enemies.
Yeah, man. Fuck all y'all, man. For real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man. For real, man. Spicy.
Now, keep in mind, this is the first Drake interview we have seen since the beef happened, and it is no surprise that he linked up with Bobby Altoff to do it, because she is clueless about what is going on in music. She does not know anything, and is more focused on asking Drake when he thinks he is getting married, or if his abs are fake, or if he got a BBL, instead of asking the tough questions. But he knew this, and if you are waiting on a Drake interview with a real journalist, or someone within hip-hop, you are better off waiting for him to release the ghostwriters from the Ovo sweatshop, because I study ghostwriters for a living, and the last time Drake did the traditional hip-hop media press run was way back in 2013 when he dropped Nothing. Was the same, and that was also the same month Kendrick dropped the Control verse, and that was the last time we saw Drake sit with someone like Angie Martinez on a radio show where his answers could not be controlled, manipulated, or edited to fit his narrative, which is why he came across as salty, sad, and petty about that Kendrick verse. Because they caught him off guard in the heat of the moment, asking him live questions when he could not prepare and polish his answers. So his emotions spilled out, and we saw him crying about that verse, which is what pushed Kendrick to jump on the BET cypher and rap that nothing was the same since they dropped Control and tucked a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes, which was embarrassing. And ever since then, tell me what interviews Drake has done, because he did one with Elliott Wilson and B. Dot at his house, posted on his YouTube channel, clearly highly edited and filmed by his own camera crew with a big budget, and it all looked very Hollywood, very staged, and very politically correct. Even though he touched on things like the Pusha T beef and the Meek Mill beef, he was getting softball questions, and you could see he was careful with every word as if the answers were already planned. And while it was still a good interview, it felt manufactured, just like his sit-downs with Zane Lowe, who he actually trashed in this Bobby Altoff interview. But those Zane Lowe talks for Apple Music were also soft, scripted, and politically correct, and the same goes for the softball interview he did with DJ Semtex, where you could not even tell what parts of the audio they clipped or edited. And I say all this to point out that Drake has not been challenged by a real, well-researched journalist live on air, with no chance to create the most polished answer since 2013 back in the Control verse days. And the reason is simple, because he has nothing to gain from it.
I need the max win.
Yes, Drake has millions of fans who would love for him to answer the countless questions that came out of this beef. Like, what pushed all these rappers to go at you? How did you feel about losing? Because I study losing for a living. How did you feel about the Super Bowl and the Heart Part 6, where you rapped that the guys giving you information were clowns, but in the very next bar, you said you plotted it for a week and fed him that same information? So which one is it, and why were you so confident that family only matters was the red button. Where is the proof behind any of the allegations you made, and what do you actually hope to gain out of this lawsuit? But at the end of the day, no matter how badly we want those answers, what does Drake really gain by giving them? Because the people who already have strong opinions about him, whether love or hate, are not going to change their minds just because he tries to fill in the gaps that have confused us for the last year and a half, and him explaining why he did. Wagwan Delilah is not going to stop people from thinking he looks like a clown for making a song like that. And when he says, "I'ma see y'all, but not see y'all, man, for real," straight up top, you can tell maybe he should not have done all that. And then when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, people keep saying the world only expects Drake to sit down with a hip-hop journalist. What about Kendrick? He hasn't done an interview, but clearly you have not done your research, because Kendrick did a sit down with 2 hip-hop journalists, Nadeska and Ebro, and he is not the one filing lawsuits and throwing tantrums on Instagram every day because I study tantrums for a living. Calling Steve Lacy his fragile op and talking about red buttons right before losing a rap battle. And unlike Drake, Kendrick does not have many unanswered questions, since he already did 2 interviews after the beef, one where he explained what he meant by not like us, and another with Nadeska and Ebro where he broke down his intention behind the beef, behind GNX, and why his energy in 2024 was so different compared to the tone of Mr. Morale back in 2022.
I'm gonna see y'all, but I see y'all, man, for real. You know, I got hope. For real. Real talk.
I don't know if you should have done all that.
We already understand where Kendrick is at, why he did what he did, and what this beef meant to him. And while I would still love to see Kendrick sit down with a hip-hop journalist, and I am sure he will before Drake does, even if he doesn't, he is not the one leaving behind baggage and unanswered questions, which is exactly why people are expecting Drake to speak on this. And he did something similar after the Pusha T beef, when he sat down for another highly manufactured and controlled interview with LeBron James on The Shop. And I study rap battles for a living, but I am telling you, Drake will never go anywhere. He cannot control the narrative because he has nothing to gain and everything to lose, since being live on air means he could easily fumble and say something stupid, whereas sitting with someone he knows will throw him softball questions or edit out anything that makes him look bad guarantees that the interview at least helps his brand. And we have already seen him link up with Aiden Ross for live streams, with XQC, and with Bobby Altoff, all of whom have very diverse but mostly younger audiences. And Drake knows that sitting down with Joe Budden, Elliott Wilson, Academics, Rory and Mal might win him a little credibility with hip-hop fans. But many of them already see him as a clown because of that lawsuit, so he gains nothing by trying to explain his loss. And by linking with Bobby Altoff and Aiden Ross, he kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because he can still show that he is outside, show off his personality, and stay in the conversation, but do it in a way that avoids hard-hitting questions, since they are never going to put him on the spot like that.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back, and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
And then number 2, unlike Elliott Wilson or Academics, whose audiences Drake has already captured, with Aiden Ross and Bobby Altoff, these are brand new audiences where if he shows up on their platforms, he can pull in some of their fan base the same way he used to collaborate with Future all the time, because that gave him a way into the trap music scene and their fans. And he even talks about this in the interview, where people see him as a culture vulture, the same idea Kendrick brought up in the 3rd verse of Not Like Us, when he said Drake ran to Atlanta and colonized their sound. So with that, let's dive into this goofy interview. But first, ladies and gentlemen, unlike Drake, a lot of you have been telling me you have been needing a max win and some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put you on to something that almost feels too good to be true. And before we get started, let me give you a quick glimpse into my life.
People think you got a procedure done.
Really?
Yeah, an ab one.
Now I am also seeing a lot of people talking on Twitter, and by the way, follow me there under the name Rapaholics, spelled the same way as here, or Hip Hop History, and they are saying that this new Drake song dropping tomorrow night, Iceman Episode 3, is supposed to be the bomb, the big red button Drake has been teasing for what feels like 2 years. And in the middle of this lawsuit he filed, he is now apparently releasing the red button So does this mean Game 2 of the Kendrick battle is about to start? Does this mean we are going to see a revival of that whole clash? Because to me, it feels like Drake has been trying to brand himself as the villain of hip-hop ever since around 2018 after the XXX situation. And I am not saying he had anything to do with that, but just the strange bars he dropped along with the back and forth with Pusha T and Kanye West, and even a whole song called Red Button where he said if he pressed it, everything would detonate. And now after this beef, he is calling himself a war general, shooting videos with guns pointed at him, and trying to push that image even harder.
You know what it is, man. Fuck all y'all, man. For real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man. For real.
And now apparently the song dropping tomorrow on Iceman episode 3 is going to be called Who Was It? And people are saying it is going to shake up the industry. And if you did not know, that phrase came from a bar he rapped on The Heart Part 6, where he said you mentioned a minor, but people gotta be sharp and tell the fans who was it. And this also seems like the first Iceman episode that he has actually announced days before the drop, which makes it feel more calculated than his track with Central C, because if that was meant to be his comeback hit, then the climb back to the top is going to be rough. And I know everyone would love to see this beef reignite, but what can Drake really reveal now that would make Kendrick respond, or even more importantly, what can he reveal that would actually make him win the battle or the war or Game 2 a year and a half after the clash began, especially while being in the middle of a lawsuit that he filed because he lost the rap battle so badly. And I study rap battles for a living, but the truth is he is suing the industry, not Kendrick, making it seem like the beef is bigger than just Not Like Us or Kendrick, and that the entire industry is attacking him to lower his brand value because he has been too powerful. And since last August, he has been saying we will win Game 2, which is fitting because the biggest hits Drake has dropped since the beef, like Nokia and What Did I Miss, both stalled at number 2 while Kendrick has landed 4 number 1s in the same time. So if Drake is smart, this new Iceman record will not go directly at Kendrick, but instead focus on the bots, fake streams, and the industry working against him. But at the same time, how can you attack the industry in your music when you are in the middle of suing them? Because logically, if you had a real red button that proved the industry tried to take you down, you would include that evidence in the lawsuit before dropping it on a record, since that lawsuit already contains all the proof Drake's team has right now to convince the judge there was a coordinated attack, with Not Like Us used as ammo, and they are now in the discovery phase where Drake's lawyers can request documents from UMG to build their case, like Kendrick's contracts or anything tying him to abuse allegations or the claim that Dare is the father of his kid, since that would back up the claims Drake made on Family Matters and show they were not defamation. But again, this is just information Drake is asking for, not evidence he already has. So if he really was holding on to a red button that exposed how the industry went against him, he would have to put it in the lawsuit first to present it to the judge as proof of chart manipulation or fake streams, because so far he has not shown the court any real evidence of UMG manipulating anything. And even the files the judge has allowed them to access, like Kendrick's contracts, are sealed, so Drake himself cannot see them, only his lawyers. Which means if this new Red Button Iceman episode really contains the smoking gun, it would have already been mentioned in the case. At least that is how I see it, but I could be wrong, and either way, we will be here to break it down. But in the meantime, let's get into this goofy Bobby Altoff interview, which kicks off with Drake telling her that this is the nicest thing a guy has ever done for her.
Welcome to a much more refined, poised, and pleasant. Welcome to a much more scenic and sexy.
No, try to.
And the accent Drake is using throughout this interview is absolutely hilarious because Drake has like 6 different accents he can switch on and off. And in this interview, you get the white girl voice. You also get what I call the Will Ferrell accent, that goofy, animated, over-the-top comedic one, which is my favorite, because deep down, that is who Drake really is, an actor. And then of course, you get the Toronto accent where he is like, yo, Wagwan Crody, I am about to press the red button on your Gerberts fam. And you have the Jamaican accent, the London accent, and sometimes he even raps, sings, or talks like Young Thug or Future. And I am probably forgetting some, but in this interview, the highlight was definitely the white girl accent, which is only fitting because he is with Bobby Altoff for what feels like his own little slumber party.
Recognizing somebody that I never met in my life that I thought was really interesting and I wanted to have an interesting conversation with. It pissed off like so many, like all these losers, these like, you know, like story journalists and like this guy and that guy who like feels so entitled to this interview about, and Drake never does anything for like this type of media, and it just like made people so angry.
Welcome everybody to the Rapaholic Show, where we will be clowning on the BBL buffoonery of belligerent Bobby Altoff's bestie La Brianna. And enough with the slumber party accent, because here is where it gets ridiculous, as Drake addresses the criticism he received for the first time about linking up with Bobby Altoff. Since if you did not know, this is their second interview or podcast together, and Drake is really responsible for launching this young woman's career, which they explain in the episode by pointing out that the first interview happened on the night of Bobby's daughter's first birthday, so she skipped that massive milestone to be in bed with Drake talking on a podcast, something her husband clearly did not like, and she later said it became the darkest moment of her life, and blamed Drake for it before divorcing her husband. But Drake makes it about himself, saying people did not dislike the interview because of her backlash for missing her daughter's birthday, but because they did not like him sitting down with someone outside of hip-hop media, since instead of doing a serious sit-down with a traditional journalist, he chose a random white girl to talk about painting his nails and sculpting his abs. And he trashes traditional journalism by basically saying real journalists were just mad because they never get interviews with him, while Bobby, who has no credentials or music knowledge, somehow got one, which makes those well-researched. Well-established professionals who study journalism for a living feel ignored, and Drake leans into this by painting himself against American hip-hop media as a whole, the same way we recently saw him go at Rob Markman, Elliott Wilson, Joe Budden, and really anyone who criticizes him, while the only people he still co-signs are those who endlessly praise him like Academics, Mal, and Aiden Ross. And it all highlights the control factor, because even when Drake tells Bobby this interview is the nicest thing a guy has ever done for her, it shows how he understands his power and uses it to his advantage by pulling from her fan base, while she glorifies him, letting him control the entire narrative for his own gain.
Things like on TikTok, it changed a lot of things like in the streaming world. Like it made people more comfortable to go sit down with somebody that they've never sat down with before, you know, like not to take like overly take credit, but when I do see like somebody, you know, who keeps to themselves, like a Nicki Minaj, like go to like Kai Cenat's house, or like I see, you know, these musicians go to like a guy like Plackboy Max's studio and start making songs with him, like I feel like we did usher in the idea.
And Drake claims that it was because of his first sit down with Bobby Altoff that rappers are now more comfortable appearing on streamer platforms, but this is incredibly wrong for so many reasons, starting with the fact that Bobby Altoff is not even a streamer, and the streamers he points to, like Nicki Minaj going on Kai Cenat's stream, or artists showing up with Plackboy Max, are doing something completely different than Bobby, because Kai Cenat actually has talent in creating an entire world of entertainment on his streams, where you will see Chris Brown doing dance challenges, Kim Kardashian making appearances, or Kevin Hart and Drowski joining a slumber party that was genuinely funny, while Offset also did one, and it worked. So it is weird for Drake to try to take credit for slumber parties in hip-hop when rappers were showing up on streams long before he ever went to Bobby. And I remember Tory Lanez freestyling on Aiden Ross's stream, or the time Playboi Carti was paid $2 million by Aiden just to show up for 2 minutes, say nothing, and leave, or even when 21 Savage scammed him. So for Drake to claim credit is like saying that because he collaborated with Future, he opened the doors for every Canadian artist to collaborate with Atlanta trap stars, which just does not connect, though I get what Drake is trying to say about artists feeling more comfortable with newer platforms, and he references Nicki Minaj going on Kai Cenat's stream, which ties back to Elliott Wilson criticizing her for rolling out her album with Ak or Funny Marco instead of traditional journalists like himself. And Elliott also criticized Drake for doing Bobby Altoff. So Drake is essentially saying that old media journalists are just mad they are not getting the interviews, and in a way I understand his perspective, because what does Drake stand to gain by sitting with Elliott Wilson when Elliott would ask much tougher and more captivating questions, which would be great for the culture but risky for Drake? And Drake emphasizes this by saying the days of doing sit downs with Zane Lowe where you just get asked questions about your album are over, and the new era is sitting with Bobby Altoff, joking about manicures, nails, BBLs, and abs, because that is what he considers the new age of journalism.